let's see. Okay, there is no attendees right now. Let me just see.
Pamela, is there any way to make the agenda larger?
That
those
would
of us
be
with eyes.
Amanda. Amanda, could you do that?
Amanda, can you do that?
Welcome, Duncan and Greg.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Duncan and Greg are part of our panelists today. They are joining us from King Boston.
That's great, Amanda. Thank you very much.
Of course.
That's good on my eyes too, Joe. It's not just
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe.
So at this point, it's now 4:04. Joyce, we do have a quorum. We're missing a few. They might join. And if they do join, I will just make note of it during one of the pauses for the record that if they join. China Tyler is on, she said. Let me see if she's in the attendees. Yes. And John Linehan, if you could promote him. He's in the.
We also
John.
have 3 staff members who are assigned to this committee who can be promoted as well.
We were only going to open their mics if called on, David, just
Oh,
from a
that's fine.
panelist standpoint, if that works.
Yeah, it's easier to manage.
It is a little bit. So John is on now, and then let me just make sure.
Do we have Rep. Tyler?
All right. Is China on? I don't see China Tyler. Does anyone see her?
She is now no longer in either the panelist or attendee list. Oh, there she is. She's back in the attendee list.
Okay.
Maybe she's
Thank
having
you.
difficulty
Got it.
coming in and out.
We've
And there she
opened
is
now.
as a panelist. Great.
Gotcha. All right. If you'd like
Perfect.
to start, Joyce.
Yeah, thank you, Pamela. Welcome everyone to the second meeting of the trustees of the Boston Public Library's Strategic Community Engagement Committee. It's good to see you all on this cold, dark day. So I will open the meeting by reading the welcome statement that we do at all Boston Public Library trustees meetings. The trustees of the Boston Public Library reaffirm our commitment to racial equity and to principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion more broadly. The library is formally committed to becoming an anti-racist organization in response to systemic racism, inequity, and injustice prevalent in our society. We acknowledge also that the Boston Public Library's Central Library stands on land that was once a water-based ecosystem, providing sustenance for the indigenous Massachusetts people, and is a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange among nations. We are committed to land acknowledgements for all locations at which we operate. We reaffirm this commitment to set the context for our planning, deliberations, and public engagement will take place from the spirit of welcome and respect found in our motto, free to all, I'm sorry. Great, so that's the opening statement. Thank you. And we will begin with a roll call of the committee members. Pamela, can I hand it back to you?
Of course, and I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. I'm just going to state your last names for efficiency. Arana Ortiz. Evelyn. She's frozen. I'm seeing her on the screen. Okay, I'm going to move ahead. I do see Evelyn. Aranis Ortiz. I'm sorry, Arenas. Berman.
Here.
Coleman.
Here.
Thank you. I know that Amari Jeffries will be absent today. Leonard.
Here.
John Linehan.
Present.
Joyce Linehan.
Here.
Miles.
Present.
Pham.
Here.
Tyler.
Present.
And Waterman.
Here.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Pamela. If there's no objection to this, I'm going to flip the agenda around a little bit just in deference to our guests so that they don't have to necessarily sit through the entire meeting if they don't want to. We've got a couple of non-committee member guests who came to present. So Unless there's an objection, what I would do is move the engagement updates to be number 3 in the second section of the agenda. Am I okay to do that?
Of course.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So with that, we asked a couple of folks, a few folks who have been engaged in partnerships with particular branches to talk a little bit about how those partnerships came to be and what they mean and what the future holds for them. And so I would like to, so we will first hear from our friends from King Boston. As you know, Imari Paris Jeffries, who is I believe his title is Executive Director of King Boston, is a member of this committee. He is, I believe, planning his wedding in Mexico right now. And he sent a couple of his able colleagues to talk to us about the King Boston Roxbury branch partnership. And after we hear from them, we will hear from our committee member, Dayron Miles, about the Arnold Arboretum collaboration that he dreamed up in his head and then executed very well. So please welcome Duncan Ramaj Healy. I hope I didn't butcher that name. And Greg Ball from King Boston.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you all. Thank you, David and Joyce, and I see Rep. Tyler and all of you for having us here. Greg and I are gonna tag team. We're gonna try to be our best stand-in for Imari, although I'm not sure we'll be able to do as well as him. But we just put together a very short slide deck just to kind of give a little context of King Boston, where we are and where we're going, and then go into what the partnership with the Roxbury branch is doing. So next slide, please. So we just want to start with our mission and vision. We've actually been revamping this a bit. If you just click on it one more time, sorry, you can. Yeah, there it is. So I just want to read it. King Boston envisions a radically inclusive and equitable Boston worthy of us all, where BIPOC thrive, grounded in joy, love, and well-being. And our mission has been evolving a bit, but it's relatively the same as it's been. King Boston dismantles structural racism together with diverse partners, including folks like the Boston Public Library, through innovations at the intersection of arts and culture, community organizing, and research. Next slide. So we just wanted to ground people in, of course, what King Boston's about. That was a picture of the Kings in the 1950s where they met, and this is the picture of the true embrace that folks are starting to know about. The memorial that'll be going in to the Boston Common. This is when Dr. King actually learned that he had won the Nobel Peace Prize. And forgive me if some of you have already seen this and heard this this presentation, but we think it's a wonderful representation of the moment. And Hank Willis Thomas captured it and is working with Mass Design Group to design out. And right now it's actually being fabricated in the West Coast at a foundry in Walla Walla, Washington, and it will be shipped back here. So I'll show you the slides. Next one, I'll show you, for those of you who have not seen it. Here is the embrace. It's about 20 feet tall, about 90 feet wide, actually, when you bring in all that platform around there. And each of the little marks, those little copper marks, are actually will be names of folks who also were involved in the Boston Civil Rights Movement in 1965, about a decade of 58 to 68. So we're really excited. Just want to show you a little bit about where it is. Next slide. Another glamour shot. You can see the State House in the background, and of course, when it's sunny, it's not as dark as it is right now. Next slide. And so just moving into a little bit of our theory of change and how some of our partnerships really work. We're in this 3-bucket area in moving towards the city by 2030 when it turns 400 and a city scale transformation of a radically inclusive and equitable. And appreciate the statement that BPL has about really being an anti-racist organization. But these 3 buckets are cultural representations, and the embrace, the memorials fits in that, and also our arts and culture. And Greg's going to go deeper into that work. Institutional practices, our community organizing. That's how we do see working with institutions in changing and helping them deepen and evolve their work. And then public policies using research and data and knowledge. And all three of these areas are kind of moving simultaneously in a counter narrative towards that city scale transformation. Next slide. So that just a little deeper dive into that first bucket of institutional practices. We've hired Reverend Moore, and some of you may be a part of this New Boston Coalition. It's really a way that we've gathered over 80 organizations, for-profit, nonprofit, state, local, and representatives really thinking about what a new Boston can be, and putting out the frameworks. Things like we have a consultancy division thinking about equity and how that's really working its way through all these systems. You can see these other parts of our community organizing work that are in development. Carrington's only been here about 3 months, so there's been a lot of work. Next slide. In our public policies, we have launched a research institute, and we're putting together actually a harm report to be released hopefully in January as a part of a convening. We're really trying to capture the reparations work at the local level. We're also working on a well-being dashboard that will be unveiled at our Embrace Ideas Festival, which Greg will talk about in a bit. And then, we're part of a Green Ribbon Commission about a shared history, and also doing some litigation and legislative tracking. So just kind of talking to folks about where our research and our data knowledge arm is going. Next slide. And so here's where I'll turn it over to my colleague, Greg, and talking about that third bucket of cultural representations, and then kind of moving forward into how we see this relationship with the Roxbury branch really evolving. So Greg, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Duncan. It's great to be here with everybody. And when we start to have the conversation around cultural representation, for King Boston, it's very, very important to be creating the right version of us in the world. So with the first piece of that is the memorial itself. The memorial is a gift to the city of Boston, and it's amazing. Since I've been at King Boston, I've known the story prior to coming to King Boston, but it was amazing to me how many people did not know that the Kings met here, and they went on dates on Boston Common. There's pictures of them on the Common together as young college students. And we, as a college town, we have, kids from all over the world who come and get fed knowledge and then go back out into the world and do great things. And, the idea of Boston having a connection to that legacy of the Kings is I think is super important. It's part of the roots of who they were. And, Dr. King actually even talked about how he felt that Boston was one of his homes away from home. So when we think of the cultural representation, one is to set the record straight and let people know where we are as a city and where we fit into the overall narrative. And then also the importance of just making sure that we have the record straight in the world. And then the other part of the work that we're doing is the Embrace Ideas Festival, and that is going to be on Juneteenth, during the week of Juneteenth, leading up to Juneteenth. The Embrace Ideas Festival is a week of us bringing academics and artists together to be able to share around all the things that are going on within all of our communities, to be able to talk about where we're going to be debuting the harm report during the festival. We'll also be doing having deep dive conversations around the arts and their importance in our city and where those things fit. And across the board, we're looking to make this equity almost South by Southwest, if I can use that term. So the ability of kind of bringing all those things together, which is something that people don't see Boston as. And I think that, just as much as the memorial is a gift to the city of Boston, we feel that the Embrace Ideas Festival will grow to be that as well. And in addition to that, we also know that it's very important for us to push back against the stories that are and the narratives that are out there in the world. So we have our Good Trouble podcast where we have regular conversations with folks, and we find that we hear about their journey and how they got to be in the roles that they are. So we've talked already in the on the podcast to Shagun Idowu, who is our new chief of economic development for the city of Boston, Michael Bobbitt from the Mass Cultural Council. So we get to hear the story about how they became the people that they are and why they're so committed to building a better tomorrow for all of us. And then the additional piece, and the last piece I'll talk about, is the Voices on King in our One Night in Boston film series. You know, we also feel that it's important to keep a record of the important voices that have been fighting for us. And with those two films, those two film series, that's what we do. We've already released those, the first editions of those, and those have been broadcast on NBC 10 for the last, for this year and then this coming year as well. We can go to the next slide. So we talked about the festival. The festival itself is built on using the arts as a source of connection and a source of learning. And then we can go to the next slide. And there we go. We've already got this set up. This is what our conference will be like. It's an unconference conference. So the beginning of the morning will be a day where we can have people get together. We'll have keynote speakers, panel discussions, and then social time and live music. So we'll have artists that we have that are here based in Boston that will be a part of that. And it will be in a different location in each on each day with our different partners. And we'll be going live with our Embrace Ideas Festival mini website very shortly. So you'll be able to get into just exactly who will be the keynote speakers, but it'll be a number of local and national figures. Next slide, please. So where we come together today is to have the conversation about where we can do some work together with the BPL and King Boston. So, you know, these were a couple of things that we kicked around that we would, you know, think that would be great, being able to have a satellite office within the Roxbury branch, possibly doing some of the podcasting from there and having that be a spot where we bring people so that we can film and shoot the podcast and let that be a cornerstone of what we're creating, a possible venue for some of the festival programming and some of the organizing. We've actually used I believe we've used the Nubian Square branch already as a meeting site for some of the work that we've already done with our Freedom Plaza that Duncan spoke of a little bit earlier. And then we've been kicking the idea around going back to the concept of being a place where we can develop counter narratives, is doing a speaker and author series with the BPL where we bring folks right into the heart of the community, authors that we feel that are making great work within the space. So I think that's an idea that we've been kicking around for a while that we think that could really, really be important. And then the final day of the festival, we want to do it right in the heart of the community, right in Nubian Square. So there's a possibility for us to be in partnership with the Embrace Ideas Festival. We want to do a block party right there in Nubian Square, where we bring out food trucks, live performances right there into the heart of the neighborhood. So that's another one of the ideas that we kicked around. So hopefully these are all appetizing to you. You know, get your dancing shoes on, we'll get some music together and we can all come out and have a good time and learn at the same time. But if there's any questions, feel free.
That's great. Thank you, Duncan and Greg. This is amazing. You know, Paul English came with this idea in 2017, I want to say. And it's not a new idea. It's been attempted several times before by other people, but I feel like it's actually going to get done this time. And it's really amazing to see that it's gone from being, you know, a simple, well, simple might not be the right word, but a memorial on Boston Common to something that is liable to change the conversation in Boston, and hopefully to change the reputation of Boston in ways that we would like to see it change. So this is absolutely amazing. And I think David can pipe in here too, if he wants to, but this is a really good example of something where the timing was just a little bit off. The Roxbury branch was pretty far along in the design process when we all this is when I was back at City Hall, decided that BPL and King Boston should be talking. It's a lesson for us to take, as some of these other libraries are kind of on the planning block, to really think about how to make sure that we're on the front end with some of this stuff. I have no doubt that there will be great BPL King Boston partnerships in the future, but it could be really great to imagine like what a partnership looks like when we're thinking about it at the very beginning stages of planning too. I don't know, David, if you want to tell me to stop talking or add to that.
No, I think this is so valuable to see. Something that, I was there for some of those meetings with you and others early on, and to see this grow. And there's a couple of what ifs could have happened if the timing had been a tiny bit better. But honestly, I think the vision has grown and iterated so quickly and is so supported by so many individuals that I don't know that we could have kept up anyway. And so I don't think that's standing in the way of our ability to do things together. Although, both our teams are continuing to, iterate and think and brainstorm and see, clearly this is more than just having an office presence at a branch or running a few community meetings and having a few invited speakers. And so in meaningful ways, we're happy to have been the one of the voting sites during the selection of the Embrace artwork early on. And also, I think we're hosting some of the input for the selection of names to be incorporated into the final design. And so we're certainly finding the one-off opportunities to make this relationship work. And I think we look forward to seeing what comes out of the ongoing conversations about collaboration, even if it's far and above what was initially conceived.
Hey,
It's
friends,
great. Congratulations to you guys. Does anyone have questions for our guests?
Yeah, Joyce, if I may, I just want to say thank you to Greg and Duncan for this presentation. And, your Embrace Ideas Festival sounds really exciting. I know that I work at the American Repertory Theater at Harvard University, and we'll be producing 1776 at the same time. And we're in deep partnership because of our deep value alignment with the Boston Public Library. So I wonder what the three of us might be able to think about or cook up around that time or during that week. It could be really exciting and fun. So
well, it's interesting you say that, my friend. I just let me throw this in real quick. So part of our vision for the festival is for it not to be something that we only hold. So we want to get to a point where we're kind of creating the tentpole events, and then much like South by Southwest, people plan their events around that same time, which ends up making it bigger. So the entire city and the region gets taken over by the concept during the week. So we throw, maybe we throw the big parties, but then there's multiple things that people can do. So for this week, we're starting off, but maybe we can do something where it gets to a point where we're doing the panel discussions and then the performances are going on, at American Repertory Theater. That's going on at the same time. So now people have something to choose from. So it's not a listen, you have to come to ours to be included in and thought of as being part of the festival. So that you're right on time with what we're thinking.
I would even say it'd be exciting to think about us, taking some artists from the show who are using their bodies and their own personal narratives to help us tell this story of what it means to be free in America and what democracy means to each of us, which are things that the Kings obviously were central to in the way that a lot of Black people have navigated those questions. And so I wonder what sort of conversations could be a part of the festival that could even be, we could do something at the actual branch. I think that could be really cool. So I'm super open to discussing and dreaming with you all if you are.
I have a quick question. It's wonderful that we're going to have a lot of things to remember Dr. King and his family and his wonderful work. A thought just occurred to my mind that during the struggle for civil rights, there are also other groups standing shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King and other African, I guess, the civil rights leaders, Asian, Hispanic. So I'm just wondering if in any of the planned exhibitions or celebration, will there be discussion of having those different groups who participated in the civil rights movement be a part of those celebrations?
Yeah, well, I can take that. It's a great question, and David, you're absolutely right. I forgot to mention that you have been your branch has been kind to help us with gathering the artistry for the initial design, and now gathering names for the 1965 Freedom Plaza, which I think, Thomas, what you're maybe thinking about. There are many other known and unknown civil rights icons in Boston that we want to uplift. And so the 1965 Plaza that is going underneath or around the monument is actually going to be highlighting 65 other names. And there's a nomination process that is actually on our website right now to uplift some of those names that you might be thinking about to include on that plaza as a first step. And then we also have designs of opening up a Center for Economic Justice in Roxbury that would be an additional museum to highlight those additional folks who have been a part of both the civil rights and beyond and before. So it's a great question. I hope that helps articulate that indeed we were very committed to much beyond, not that the Kings needed to have more folks around them to really highlight that, but we really want to, it is a movement that we want to highlight.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, I wanted to touch on something that Greg mentioned. Oh, Pam Waterman here. You mentioned something about author talks, and I'm also loving this Embrace Ideas Festival. And so I direct the Museum of African American Stone Book Award, and our winner does a book talk at the Central Branch every year. But we have phenomenal finalists and other authors on our short list. And so you were talking about getting authors maybe to do some talks at the Roxbury branch or the Dudley branch. And if it would work with part of the Ideas Festival, I would love to maybe work with you and put you in touch, or say, somehow make a liaison between the festival and some of the other authors that we've been featuring over the last couple of years to maybe do a book talk as part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, the idea is to expand it. We want everybody to participate in the ways that they bring and that they can bring themselves fully to. So I think that would be great. And we want people to have options as well. So, like I said, so I think the idea of that, so let's talk, we can figure out a way to connect and talk about that.
And just as a side note, Thaddeus Miles actually released his book unofficially at last year's Juneteenth. That was a national holiday, first time that we actually had this thing, in Nubian Square. So we have a little bit of a template and really want to build on it. So thank you for bringing that to us, Pam.
Excellent.
Absolutely.
Great. Any last questions for Duncan and Greg? Congratulations.
I have one question. This is Michelle Coleman. So listening to everyone speak about collaborations, I'm connected to a group of wellness folks who do yoga and meditation. And I think it would also, just given the contemplative, meditative legacy that Dr. King has for our communities, I would love to connect with you as well to see how we can make a connection with that piece, because I think that it's kind of essential, especially in these days and times, to figure out how to pause and to reflect, as well as have these deep conversations, deep and meaningful conversations. So I too would like to make a connection with you gentlemen to figure out how we can connect our wellness warriors with this effort.
So that's great. And one of our days is actually around wellness that we're working with Harvard Medical Center, Harvard Medical School. And I can't make any promises. I can get my knee by my ear with yoga and stuff, but I'll try.
I teach chair yoga. You do not have to put your knee
see,
to
now
your
that
ear.
sounds like my kind of yoga. That sounds like my kind of yoga. But yeah,
Yeah.
I absolutely think that is right in line with what we're talking about. So let's figure that out and figure out where we can make those things all work together. We'd love to have that as part of it.
A quick repetitive question though, what are the dates of the event? I missed that part.
My apologies. I was so mindful of the time. I kept speeding through. So we're looking at June 13th through June 17th of 2022. So our goal going forward is to make this the week leading up to Juneteenth every year.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
And Juneteenth will, if I remember the law correctly, it's the third. Is it the third Monday? First Monday? Or third Monday, rather. I'm sorry. Third Monday of June. So we'll be trying to set our festival up each year to go into that, with Juneteenth being the final day.
Great, thank you. And thanks for all the great questions. Greg, Duncan, congratulations. It's so awesome to see so much great progress. And thanks for being so flexible and being here when Amari couldn't. So we really appreciate it. You are welcome to stay, but you're also welcome to go.
Thank you.
Really great presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.
Goodbye.
Okay, wonderful. So moving on, we are going to hear from committee member Dayron Miles, who's going to talk a little bit about the partnership between the Arboretum and the ART and the BPL. Dayron?
Sure. Thank you so much, Joyce. And I'll be super brief, y'all. I feel like this is the first, hopefully, of many updates because I feel like we are at the beginning of a long-term partnership, and the ways that we're dreaming together are deep and longitudinal, and it's really, really exciting. This past summer, as every organization on the planet, obviously, was affected by the coronavirus, theaters were hit particularly hard as our entire business, everything that we do relies on people being able to gather. And so when we started to think about how we might come back together, we wanted to make sure that we could do it safely. We also knew that we were battling a disease that literally took our breath, was taking away the ability to breathe. And you know, one of the things that happens at a theater, the magic of theater happens between the breath, actually, between the performer and the audience. And we really wanted to invite our community to come together and breathe again. And so we brought together artists around 4 central themes: resilience, healing, wellness, and joy. And so we asked these artists under the brilliant leadership of Summer Williams, who I think has directed a show for Company One at the BPL Central Branch. We developed this incredible immersive self-guided experience. 4 audio plays were created and 12 movement maps. These movement maps were created by choreographers. Think guided meditations in the Arboretum. We had Saturday pop-ups because we wanted folks to be able to gather and see folks as they did their self-guided journeys. I think I saw Priscilla Douglas at every single one of them, perhaps. And so folks would gather and we would invite artists to come and perform live so that folks had a live element, but then were able to go on their own. The partnership with the Boston Public Library came in when we were in conversation with Angela Vaizaga, who is a brilliant person. I think she's the director of community engagement or strategic partnerships at the Boston Public Library. And Angela, we're so blessed to have her on our staff, y'all. She jumped in with full enthusiasm, and we thought about how we might remove any barriers for our community to experience this, to experience the live gatherings, to experience the audio plays. And so through her guidance and her collaboration, we decided to provide free transportation from 2 Boston Public Library branches every week. And so the entire time that we promoted this experience. And so we provided transportation from the South End branch, focusing particularly on families, and from the Chinatown branch, again, focusing on families. In addition, that for me, that would have been like the best part of the partnership, and we could have gone home and I would have been like, great, check, A's for everybody. But then Angela said it would be really cool if we came up with reading lists for adults and for young people. And so she worked with her team at the library to create a reading list. So there's 2 reading lists. The first, there's 19 books for adults. I am actually reading one because it was on the reading list, The Overstory by Richard Powers. I think a lot of people are probably reading that one. And then there were 21 books that were selected for young people. And I have to say, it has been a long time. I'm 35 years old. It's been a long time since I gave myself the treat to read a children's book. But because we got the list and I happened to be at the library, I decided to grab a children's book, y'all. And it was wonderful to revisit children's literature. And so I hope I'm not a creep in going into the children's section now, because the stories are wonderful. Anyway, it was a wonderful partnership. And because of that, because of the deep thinking around our values, I should have said this experience in the Arboretum is free for everyone. It's free to all, which is exactly what the library stands for. It's not typically the way that the theater works. And so it was really great to be able to collaborate around something so central to libraries and the way that they engage our communities. And so because of that, that opportunity, we are now dreaming of how we might expand the way that we help share and tell stories and narratives, so plays, how we might partner with the library to make sure that that is available to residents in different neighborhoods. And I'll just say that so that I don't go too far. And hopefully in our February meeting, if Joyce is so kind, I can maybe spend a few minutes to update you on how our thinking and dreaming has continued to evolve as we have been meeting regularly. But super open to any questions and ideas.
That's great, Darren. And yeah, you're already on the February agenda. So does anyone have questions for Darren?
I just want to note for the trustees and committee members and the chairperson that of the staff people who are working on this topic with you, Michael Colfer, Director of Library Services, Angela Vizaga, Director of Strategic Partnerships, Priscilla Foley, Director of Neighborhood Services, and Lisa Pollock, our Director of Communications, are all attending this meeting. They're in attendee mode, and we can certainly tap them at any point to involve them directly in the conversation.
I'm so happy to know that they're here. I did not know that. I would love to say on behalf of American Repertory Theater, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for your work. We have received such positive feedback on the reading list, on the book list. We are so grateful for our partnership and can't wait to dream a little bit more.
And I missed someone. The Chief of Staff, Sarah Zafiris, is here as well. So anyway, just to complete the picture.
That's great, thanks. Anyone have questions for Darren? Okay, moving on to our next agenda item. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time.
Can I just quickly say, not questions, but kudos. That was fantastic. So bravo, Darren. Okay.
Sorry, my mistake. Does anyone have kudos? All right, let me rephrase. Does anyone not have kudos for Darren? All right, great. I'm
sorry, Amanda, could we have Michael come join us? He does have one piece of input on this, so I think there's another dimension to this topic with ART that he'd love to share with us.
I think you may just have to open his mic. He's joining us from call-in mode.
Either way.
No, I think.
Oh, no, he's here. Okay, sorry, Michael.
No, not a problem. Darren, that was great to hear, and it was great to hear such praise for Angela because she is amazing. She's doing amazing things. I just wanted to add in the ART is actually involved in a three-way partnership with the Boston Public Library and Company One Theater. We're doing another Company One production in the spring called Black Magic Superhero Mama, and the ART is partnering with Company One, who is hosting the production at the library in our year-long partnership with Company One. So it's really great. We're having such good engagement with so many of our arts organizations with our partnerships for the library. So I just wanted to mention that because it's another piece of the partnership that's already in play.
Thank you so much, Michael. Oh my gosh, if Karthik is listening to this meeting, he's going to kill me. Thank you so much for mentioning that. We are so excited. Karthik and I are actually in communication right now to think about how we might continue engagement and spread that out into more of our community. So thank you for lifting that. We love our friends at Company One. In fact, a lot of the team that I mentioned who helped us create the Arboretum experience are members of Company One. So the relationships go deep.
Great, thanks everyone. Okay, so actually we don't need the agenda. I don't think. I'd rather look at faces, if you don't mind. Thank you. Since our last meeting, I spent several hours talking to some branch librarians and some friends groups, and it was fascinating. Met some amazing people. I stayed away from the branches that I actually know and kind of tried to widen my horizons a little bit, and had some really, really good conversations about this committee. Tried to explain that, what we're trying to do is figure out ways to support deeper engagement with the neighborhoods around the branches without getting in the way of the libraries, of the librarians, because sometimes when you're offered help, it's more trouble than when you don't have the help. So trying to be cognizant of the fact that these folks are doing great work and know what they're doing and know their communities, just wanted to have an open conversation about what kinds of things we might think about as we try to figure out what strategic community engagement means and how, or what it means in the context of the trustees and committees of the trustees. So the conversations that I had sort of underscored the very different personalities of the branches and the neighborhoods in which they exist. It was a small sample group, so it's really hard to draw definitive conclusions, but there were a few things that did emerge. And we can get a little bit more granular later, and I will in conversations about specific branches, but all or almost all of them wished for support to better communicate with their neighborhoods, both to attract new people and also to keep them interested once they have been attracted. They know that they're reaching, this was universal, they know that they're reaching the engaged populations around their libraries, but they know that they're missing people. And some of them know exactly who the missing people are, and some of them don't know. They just know they're missing. All or almost all of them wished for more investment in technology, which I wasn't surprised to hear. And several talked about yearning for more language resources to better serve patrons whose first language is something other than English. I know the library tries really hard to provide that support, but it's big and expensive, and it's all the things that we know. So they definitely talked about the fact that they thought that they could use more of that kind of support. And all of them have neighborhood partnerships that they really treasure, but they wish they had more. And they all cited capacity issues as being the reason why they couldn't go out and forge those kinds of new partnerships sometimes. And speaking to some specific branches, so I spoke to 3 librarians and then 3 friends groups. And in the case of one of the friends groups, it was one person very engaged, and the others were groups of people. So I spoke to the Parker Hill branch, which is in Mission Hill, and there emerged some thematic programming around health and wellness, which I think even the librarian was surprised to find that I was seeing a thread in there, which makes sense given the proximity to Longwood, and probably could provide there could be more engagement there with the medical community that could lead to really good partnerships. They have yoga classes. They have a strong partnership with the Mission Hill Health Movement, and in addition to that, they have a women's writing program that they're really proud of. But the population that they feel like they're missing is young adults aged 20 to 35, which makes sense. And this kind of came up in a lot of the branches. They said, the librarian said that people come as kids and then they leave and then they come back when they have kids of their own. So big missing swath of people there. They also feel like they're missing the older teenagers. So they are currently working with their friends group to bring in a gaming console and to plan some ancillary programming around gaming, which I thought was very innovative of them. And they hope that that's going to bring in some of the younger folks. So they definitely said that they'd like some help thinking around how they thinking about how they attract that missing demographic. I spoke to Uphams. Now they're in a really interesting spot because if you've been there, you know that they're in a really tough physical location. They have been since I was a kid, I think. But they're soon getting a brand new library. But when I say soon, I mean soon in government terms, which means, I don't know, a few years perhaps, right? But in the planning stages. David, you want to say something about the timeline there?
So the Upham's, the plans for the replacement of the Upham's Corner branch is out for bid right now with the under the BPDA's guidance. We will have proposals back within weeks. I forget the exact due date for the city to review. Because this will be a mixed use development, either this one or Chinatown will likely be the first in the system where we do this. Basically a 4 to 6 story building with library on the first or second floor and housing above it. Because that's more complex to do, there needs to be a process for whoever the selected developer is to secure all the funding they need and then build it. So we're probably are at least in the 2 to 3 year time frame, if not a little bit more, but less than 5.
So regardless, lots of opportunity or lots of optimism, I should say, among the Upham's crew. They have a crafts program, which they really like, and they adapted that for the pandemic by making up craft kits for people to pick up and take home, which I thought was great. They have a spice club, which is not to be confused with the spice effort that you might have read about recently, which is about collecting spices and donating them to the Greater Boston Food Bank. This is more of a cooking club, and they've been meeting over Zoom, and she says they have a nice little crowd that is coming to that. I talked to them a little bit about, I'm pretty intimately aware of the Upham's planning process, having been involved in it in City Hall. And we always thought about Upham's Corner as an arts district, an arts and innovation district is what we called it. And that the library would have an arts focus when the new library finally was built. I was interested to hear that the librarian thinks that they're kind of more on the innovation side than on the arts side, which is not to the exclusion of arts, but it makes sense when you think about it, given DSNI's interest in that area, as well as the Fairmont Innovation Lab, and then all of the education work that happens basically down that Dudley Street corridor from Upham's to Nubian Square. They have 9 neighborhood associations in their catchment area, which is amazing, in varying degrees of engagement with those 9. They're very different, everything from Jones Hill to Hancock to it's a mix of neighborhoods. They're very interested in trying to develop programming that would be of interest to low-income mothers of young children. They would really like to figure out a way to better serve the Cape Verdean community. They believe that they're falling short there. And Cape Verdean, there are a lot of Cape Verdean folks in the Upham's Corner area. And then they also would really like to figure out a better way to communicate with the neighborhood. They don't feel like they have much skill in that area. East Boston, really interesting, newer library, has won all kinds of architectural awards. Everyone seems to really love it. The neighborhood really loves it. According to the librarian, it really feels like there's that immigration is the theme that sort of emerges out of East Boston, but they also fear that they're losing the immigrant community as the neighborhood gentrifies, and they're very afraid of that. They're very excited that they got a new librarian who's Latinx and speaks Spanish, and that frees them up to do more physical outreach in the neighborhood. They want to get out and talk to people outside of the library building. And again, they'd like to have better communication with the neighborhood and more technology for patrons. Then I talked to a bunch of friends groups, spoke to Fields Corner. Interesting. I think that's the smallest library in Square. Well, maybe not counting Chinatown, right? Or the current Chinatown. Probably the smallest library in square footage. And also in the planning stages for something renovated new. They don't feel that they're effective at all in reaching the elders in their area, which I was very surprised to find, because there's certainly a lot of elderly housing in the Fields Corner area. So that would be a place where they would really welcome some help. The group that I met with and the group that is their friends does not represent the neighborhood in terms of demographics. They've tried hard to correct that, but they haven't had much luck. They're basically a group of, I don't know how well you all know Dorchester, but they're really a group of Melville Park folks as opposed to Fields Corner folks, and that there's a big difference there. They're very concerned about some of the upcoming elements of the renovations, which is a little off topic from what I was supposed to be discussing with them, but they really wanted to talk about it. So just so you know, they say the process hasn't been transparent. They feel that they've been being offered one size fits all solutions and doesn't acknowledge the unique characteristics of their branch in their neighborhood. They're very concerned about diminishing number of books that they think is going to be what happens at the end of the rainbow here. saying that it will make them less able to serve the Vietnamese community that does live nearby. And they say they really want to have swing space while the library is closed because they are the only Dorchester branch that's actually on the MBTA. I had a great conversation with the Honan branch, which is one that I have only been to once. I don't really have much of a sense of it because Alston might as well be Los Angeles from where I live in Dorchester. So they worry about the grounds and the physical plant a lot. They seem to want to do maintenance and things of that nature, which is, you know, potentially a labor issue, but they seem to have a good handle on what they can and can't do. They really would like banners in front of the library. They say that a lot of people don't know that it's a library building. And I guess they had them at one point and don't have them anymore. And they were asking, you know, whether that was something that we might like to work on with them. They have a great partnership with Harvard, which is lucky for them. I think not a lot of branches have that kind of a really deep relationship with a nearby college, but they do struggle with the transient nature of the young adults in the neighborhood. Though they say the library is used pretty extensively by students as a quiet place with Wi-Fi. It's just that they're only passing through for a few years. They would really like help with comms. I think I noticed that the Roslindale Friends are in the attendee section here. They covet Roslindale's newsletter as something that they'd like to be able to do, but they don't have the skills to do it. So they'd like to try to figure out how to do something like that. And they recognize that investments in technology are really important to their users, and they'd really like to encourage more of that. And then I spoke to Codman Square, which was great. I'm assuming that you library staff folks know this gentleman, Marcus, who's the head of the Friends group, but he's pretty amazing. They're doing programs like Senior Arts and Smarts. They have a quilting program, which is really has a lot of uptake. And they also have a garden in the back with City Sprouts partnership, and they've just engaged in a partnership with City Sprouts, which is great because that basically allows a nonprofit that actually does that kind of work to take over in partnership with the library and frees up poor Janice, who probably doesn't know a whole lot about gardening. She's the librarian at Codman. Marcus says that there are a lot of people in the neighborhood who are intimidated by an institution such as the library, which, you know, I kind of think of the library as being very trustworthy, but we'll have to take him at his word that that's happening with some of the folks who live there. And he would really like to be able to do self-guided tours of the library in multiple languages, kind of like the things you get at museums where you plug it into an iPad or whatever, and you can do it on your own time, which sounds like a really good, somewhat affordable idea, maybe something that we should try to explore to help them with. He really thinks we need to invest in technology. In fact, it was Tech Goes Home, which is a great organization that works in a lot of the branch libraries to bring technology to underserved communities. It was Tech Goes Home that actually turned him on to the Codman Square Library, so that's who brought him in. And he had concerns about the virtual meetings that have been going on about the library's capital project while the branch was closed, saying that a lot of the neighbors only have internet access at the library. So it was one of those catch-22 type situations. And he wanted me to make sure that I mentioned that he's very concerned about cuts in the security budget. So that's what I learned in my journey through, you know, and again, I think it's a representative snapshot, but it's only 6 libraries, and librarians often obviously have different perspectives from friends groups. But I think there are some really interesting takeaways in there in what they think is missing and what this group might be able to support them in trying to figure out how to bring new people in. With that, I will open the floor to conversation.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments regarding the redevelopment of the branches into Upham's Corner and Few Corners. I think the concept of having a mixed-use building was wonderful, David. I like that a lot. And about 10 years ago, when I was working at Bit 8 in Few Corners, we had a winning design to redevelop the Few Corner branch mixed-use, all of those things you're talking about. And I think it's still out there. And if you like to take a look at that, I think I can get a copy for you.
Yeah,
we've all seen that one.
But I was looking for the full copy during the programming study and wasn't able to recover it, because I think it had some really good insights that would complement what the architects doing the programming study. So I'm just, sorry, now I'm in the weeds. I'd love to get a copy of that, basically.
Just so you know, Nam, that was the thing that really started the whole conversation about housing with public assets, not just in Fields Corner, but not just in libraries either, but in potentially in other public buildings. So whichever genius commissioned that, I assume was you. Thank you.
Yes, even it wasn't me, I still take credit.
Take credit. There you go.
No, and the second thing is the comment you mentioned about the concern that Vietnamese book or Vietnamese cultural books may not be as available in the future as now. I could help with that. As a matter of fact, I was asking Pamela to help to see if there is a good way for us to acquire more books from the Vietnamese language or culture or Vietnamese subject to bring into our libraries.
Yeah, I think we'd welcome that. It's sometimes difficult for us to acquire some languages and meet our obligations, and because the usual vendors do not have access to what we would refer to as our world language supplier sources, and so opportunities to supplement that, I think, would be welcome. So yes, whether it's just lining stuff up now or whether it's being part of the new collection once the new branch. Fields Corner is actually going to go into design in a couple of weeks, which will be the opportunity to resolve many questions that we knew couldn't be addressed during programming study, but will get addressed during design. And I think so I'm not surprised to hear a community go, well, we're not sure about this, or we don't know how that's going to work, because it comes later, not earlier is the answer. Joyce, I feel like you've become a not so secret shopper in terms of uncovering things that I don't know that our team would find surprising, and I want to be awfully careful about generalizing, as you were, because these are snapshots. But I think that they're all real and things I know Michael and Priscilla and Lisa would love to be able to gather more of and engage with. But this is a trustee committee meeting, so we should hear from the other members.
I have a question, which is, Joyce, you did great work, a lot of legwork, going around all these different branches. Is there a central repository, if you will, either on the BPL website where people can find out what's going on in the branches, what events are happening, when the Friends groups are meeting? You sort of have to go branch by.
So yes, all events are listed on the website, and you can search by branch. Each branch has its own web page. I think the more we get outside of library programming into Friends groups that are independent, they might not be listed there. I think we'd welcome submissions. Community meetings get listed. Can we bring
Joe? Sorry.
Can we bring Michael and Priscilla and Angela and Lisa up? Because I think their areas of concern are more than, like, I'd rather them answer or listen to some of these questions than me.
I just think it would be great if if it were easy to sort of go through and find it, from a centralized location. I realize there's a lot of work on the back end to do that, but for those of us who are looking for that quick answer, that would be great. Joyce, I think I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to say that I know that a lot of this is based on what kind of data comes in. So if the team at Central doesn't know about the things that are happening in the libraries, then they can't put it in a central location. And like David said, the Friends groups kind of operate independently. So my sense of it is that if there's somebody on the Friends group who really understands communications, then there's lots of stuff to disseminate. And if there isn't, then there isn't. That's kind of how it is. Sorry, did someone from the, did the staff?
Lisa Pollock is listed as Ida, just so you know, Amanda.
I just wanted to jump in. What I heard was a best practice relative to the newsletter that Roslindale has. Is there a way to share best practices, or were you suggesting that there's a resource issue?
You
I don't
asking me,
think it's-
Priscilla? Or
I was asking
Joyce?
Joyce her
Okay,
feeling,
sure.
but anyone who could answer.
I don't think it's a resource issue so much as it's a leadership. Like it's like if you have someone in your team who understands comms, then comms are going to get done. Or I mean, I'm talking about volunteers, not I'm talking about the friends groups, right?
Right, because
If you
the
have someone-
each friends group is completely independent of us and of themselves, and I think there's an opportunity there, and I'm sure if Laura Gang is still here, she'll have opinions on this in comment, but I think there's opportunity there for us facilitating greater collaboration and sharing of practices among friends groups if they want to. I mean, we shouldn't be dictating outside of our sphere how they run their groups or what their interests are. So
Sorry,
we're now
John-
joined by
John's-
colleagues if we want to get a couple of reactions, but committee members have precedence. So John has
and
his hand up.
John has his hand up. John.
Yes, Joyce, you had sort of charged us going into the summer with visiting branches and doing some of the kind of homework you did, I think. And I was wondering if we could approach that in a somewhat strategized and organized manner, if maybe we had an online sign up and maybe some of the key questions. I don't have the experience you have with this. This is my first foray in this area, but maybe a recommended set of base questions that we could utilize when and if we were to visit branches. And you've gotten a lot done by yourself, but I don't feel like I've contributed yet.
Sure. I mean, I can absolutely give you base questions. It was really kind of what are you proudest of and what partnerships do you value most? It was all pretty broad, but I'm happy to share with you, the cheat sheet that I used. I will tell you that one of them, and I won't identify who, said that if trustees and committees of trustees started to show up at the library en masse, it would freak them out a little bit. So just be aware of that.
That's why I was suggesting maybe we have a sign up list so we don't, sort of serially approach them about the same sort of issues.
Yep, agreed.
And that's probably just as a warning. I mean, libraries have long memories, and I think in the 2001, 2002, 2008, 2009 timeframe, there was an awful lot of pain and talks about cuts and closures and so on. And so I think people, that there could be some fear if if people start looking at stuff in a way that people don't understand. But today's conversation, this work is about our opportunities going forward. It's not about problems to solve necessarily, unless we discover something really terrible, which I hope not. But George, would you like to invite staff comments on
Oh,
your,
absolutely. If anyone on the staff wants to jump in, I'm happy.
again, let's not go point by point, but I think there's interesting learnings from these little snapshots about what you're hearing. So Michael, your hand is up first.
Well, thank you, David, and thanks, trustees and committee. I think Priscilla can certainly go on about this as well. We do, with regard to the Friends and support for the Friends, we do try to hold our annual Friends breakfast. Obviously, things get disrupted by the pandemic, and at various times when the citywide Friends have the capacity, they do offer support to the other Friends groups. But I think that would be a great way we could activate that Friends breakfast a little bit more to help. What you've discovered about Joyce, about some of the things that the Friends are looking for support is a great way for us to create our agenda and what we want to talk about at the Friends breakfast. So that's really helpful. And then I just wanted to comment on, and I think it's really illuminating for us and very helpful. And Angela had a great idea when a couple of the branches mentioned, their difficulty at reaching some of the communities in their neighborhoods that they don't already see or aren't already engaged. Angela had mentioned in the chat, can we do some training around this? And we have done a little bit, and we can certainly do more around. We have some staff who are really excellent at outreach and community engagement. And those, we've in the past, we've asked those librarians to speak to the larger groups and talk about how they do it. We just had a wonderful presentation from Claire Underwood Gross at the Eggleston Library, talking to the children's librarians about how she does outreach. And a couple of years ago, we had a wonderful presentation from Guy Harris, also from the Eggleston Library, and Ali Dowd, who was our Health and Human Services specialist at the time, talking about outreach to the branch librarians. So we can certainly do more of that to help there. And Priscilla has actually asked all of the branch librarians this year to submit community engagement plans, which have been really wonderful, because not only does it show all the great work that they're doing or want to do, and of course, this is a difficult time for them because of COVID and it's hard to do a lot of outreach, but they're getting great ideas, but it also shows which are the ones who are doing really great, which are the ones who need some assistance where we can provide by tapping the ones who are doing a wonderful job to help some of the other ones. So it's really helpful, and I really appreciate you sharing these things for us to hear that, so we can work on it. And I think just with regard to the visits, they actually really like the visits if they know you're coming, because then they can show off a little bit. And I have always thought that they'd be nervous if I just dropped in, but they're always so thrilled to see us when we do show up, especially if they know we're coming. So that's just a tip.
Hey,
I
Michael,
see a
thank you.
raised hand, but I can't see who it is.
It's me. Thank you, Joyce. Michael, thank you for that. Just a couple questions. When typically is the annual breakfast for the Friends groups?
We've held it at different times, but lately we've been doing it in January. Is that right, Priscilla? Yeah.
We usually have it in January. This year it was March, and so we're probably going to be looking for that. It's virtual, so we'll be looking to be planning that probably for March this year for 2020.
I'd love to be able to just share some space with them, and wondering if we could even see the community engagement plans that they submitted. It'd be great to just read through those if those are available.
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't know if you finished collecting them, Priscilla, but we'll take a look at them, and then certainly they're not secrets.
Okay, everything's public record, right? Pam?
Yeah, I just want to second John Linneman's notion that I also am open to assignments. I do like the idea of going to check out some libraries. I'm happy to do it kind of like the Phantom Gourmet, like no need to identify myself, but it'd be lovely to just kind of have like a little punch list of things that I'm kind of looking at. And I also want to brag that I did not join a Friends group. However, I did get on the list, the email list for the JP Friends group, just to kind of start feeling out, getting a sense of their activities. And so it was great, Joyce, to hear you report back, because it's also, as a committee member, it's also kind of giving me a more personalized sense and a more urgent understanding of what our charge is. So just saying, I'm open to homework if you want to assign some more.
Great, thank you. Other questions, observations?
I'll try this to see if it works, because I have like really low bandwidth. I thank you for, Daron, and at King Boston, I think they may be on the attendee list. I mean, all that collaboration and the sparking of the ideas, that's the whole intent of this group coming together. Because, to just communicate what each is doing. And Joyce, I commend you for going on a tour of the branches. Those are always fun. They, like Michael said, they're always happy to see you, and to know that you're interested and, in what they're doing. So thank you for doing that.
It was fun, highly recommended.
Joyce, you mentioned technology as being a concern a couple of times in conversations.
And you've made huge investments. So where's the disconnect? Because I know the investments that have been made.
Right. So I'd like to unpack that. So with your input today and maybe future meetings input from other committee members, there's probably a whole list of things that we should go survey staff about to follow up on, because yeah, you're the same thing. I'm having the same thought. It sounds like you might have had. Well, yeah, we have all this investment. We have a lot of new technology, but was there something else that needed to happen, or someone get missed, or I don't know. So
yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, hotspots were mentioned a couple of times. Also, like, I couldn't tell, like, I think the folks in Alston, when they were talking about technology, might have been talking about how to send out newsletters. Like, it's hard to know, like, where the, where the learning curve might be.
Yeah,
but yeah,
because that
technology.
could be devices, that could be skills, that could be software, who knows, right? So,
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
Were you as surprised as I was, though, from Fields Corner, sort of talking about senior outreach? Yeah, Priscilla would know the senior outreach being.
So Joyce, this is really helpful, and I'm looking forward to taking deeper dive in this. But I'm not surprised to hear that. But I know the staff, they work. They have their outreach librarian there is working around the clock on. She's endless, and so we're really fortunate to have Liz there, and they really are building their momentum. They're one of the branches that we've seen since we've opened in June that are getting steadily busier, and then it is also hard. It's very common to, we actually saw this at Roslindale opening. I had a conversation with a teenager, and she said, I haven't been here since I was 5. And so it's like, we do lose that teenager to then when they have kids very often. And so we're working on that. But what we saw with the Adams renovation, they have a ton of people at that age group coming in and using the space for studying. So as you say, like, every location is different, but I wasn't surprised to hear that about Fields Corner.
Yeah, I got to say that now that the sun sets at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when I'm walking the dog at night and I walk by Adams, it's like this beacon of light with all these people who are, like, doing their thing. It's packed with people all the time. It's just amazing to see. So congratulations on that.
I do know that you'll probably call for public comment, and I think there's only one non-staff member who's here, and that's Laura and possibly Steve from Roslindale. I think it would be great if be great to hear thoughts. If I've never done this before, I've never asked for a person in the public to join us for public comment in the middle of a meeting, but I defer to the chairperson's choice.
Yeah, we can, if committee members are done, we can certainly go to public comment and see if.
Don't forget, we have to approve the minutes too.
Oh, okay. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Can I call
Anyone
roll call
opposed?
to get your vote?
Oh, you need to do roll call? Okay, go ahead.
I do, I'm sorry. Arana Ortiz,
Yes.
Arenas is absent. Berman,
Yes.
Coleman, Michelle,
I had to unmute present.
thank you. Leonard,
Yes.
John Linehan,
Yes.
Joyce Linehan,
Present.
Miles,
Aye.
Pham,
Aye.
Tyler,
Yes.
and Waterman.
Approved.
So moved. Thank you, Joyce.
Okay, great. So with that, I'm happy to open it up to public comment. And I see in the chat that I think it's Steve that's on the line.
Amanda, if you would just mind opening up their microphones.
Hi, it's actually Laura. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'm so thrilled that this committee exists and to hear your conversation. So the things that I wrote in the chat are visible to the panelists? Okay, because I've had on my to-do list for a long time as a volunteer to look at similar cities to Boston and how they support, in particular, their friends groups. If there's any way I can get the help of the committee doing that, I think we have stuff we can learn from other similar systems that are complex and decentralized and lots going on.
Laura, would you mind also just introducing yourself? A couple of us certainly know who you are, but not everybody on the committee does yet. Thanks.
My name is Laura Gang. I'm a long-term resident of Roslindale, and I became active in the Friends here after my kids were finishing up at Latin school, where I had been a regular library volunteer. It was around the time that there were threatened closures of the branches, so there was a huge upsurge of community interest in libraries, and we kind of took advantage of that and started selling books at the farmers market, and we were off and running. We've continued with programming virtual programming and our newsletter through the pandemic, which is why it would have been great to have been pulled in more on the Arboretum partnership. And we are excited to have a spanking new, absolutely beautiful building and energetic staff of both returning and new staff people. We've been rotating through as greeters to help the staff this week, this first week of it being open, and orient people to the new space. And so we're just figuring it out now as we go along. But I do think there are ways, there's some disconnects between central branch staff, friends groups. Citywide Friends is really not a resource to the Friends group. It's really a Friends group for central. So there's some work to do there, and I'm happy to help. That's it. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Laura. I would love to talk to you about how you guys assemble your newsletter too. It would just be good to know as I'm talking to some of the other Friends groups. That'd be great.
Actually, am I still on?
You are.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I have this pet list of things that I think all Friends groups struggle with, like, what can we do in the branch? What are we allowed to do? What aren't we allowed to do? And sometimes that's not even clear to the branch heads. Hyde Park did a wonderful program survey, and we found out after we had written our own. So that's a great community outreach tool. If someone had known that one already existed, we wouldn't have had to write our own. So it's that kind of sharing the resources across the Friends groups that would be helpful. Outreach ideas, programming ideas, it goes on.
That's great. Thank you, Laura. I do think there's lots of opportunity. I belong to Lower Mills Friends group, and it's really 3 of us. And it, you know, needs to be more. Like, I mean, it's as simple as maybe trying to train people about how to recruit more friends. Yep. That would be incredibly helpful. And I think, you know, people love libraries so much that I think they just want to be asked. And I think that there would be opportunity to bring in new people.
I think we also have to do some internal work on training our branch staff on how to work with friends groups as well. It's we need to almost like provide training if it's needed on both sides of the equation, so people know how to work with each other and see each other as resources.
Yeah, that makes sense. John?
I was just going to say, is there a way to form a listserv for the Friends groups to collaborate and share resources and ideas? And
I guess potentially it's possible. I would defer to maybe the library staff here, but I think they're in such different places, and I don't mean geographically, that I don't know for sure. I don't know, Priscilla, if you have anything to add there.
Well, we found, and this is particularly true with Roslindale Friends and JP Friends, like Don Haber from the JP Friends always makes himself available to other Friends groups. And I do think we can definitely have opt-in list where people can share their ideas. And I do think that technology, we can make a lot of this happen pretty easily.
I think they do have, like, the presidents, well, sometimes they change, presidents of friends groups, and but in principle, they all have each other's emails and do have communication. But I think there's more of a, if this is a resource that we want to start, that sounds terrible to say it that way. It's a resource that we want to start leveraging as a body. Then I think we want to do some work around shared vision and buy-in and some asking of what's needed for this new iteration that I think we're working up towards, even though we might not have said that out loud. Yeah, I mean, a technology solution, email listserv, sure, easy. But I think without the overall context of what the expectation is, it won't necessarily produce different results.
I know of some branches where the Friends groups have their own Facebook page, which makes no sense to us because our job is to promote the library.
Right.
But we've had limited access in the past. I think things are all worked out now, but getting stuff posted on the library Facebook page has been problem. So there's little things like that.
Yeah.
What are the roles, I think, in addition to the other things you listed, David? And how do the missions align between the Friends group and the branch staff and Central?
So, and just to bring this conversation back to the task at hand, you know, strategic communication, strategic communications is the charge of this committee, and Friends groups can certainly be useful in that. It's not the only thing that this committee would be concerned with, but I do think that there's a lot of best practices to be learned there that could potentially be shared with the other branches. So I would say that for I don't have any concrete ideas coming out of the conversations that I've had over the past month or so with these folks, but I do think that there are some grains of sand in there that maybe deserve a little bit more exploration about how both the branch librarians and the Friends groups think that they could be better supported by the trustees or a committee of the trustees. So, you know, I'd like to ask everybody to think about that a bit, and I will send out the list of questions that I set off with to talk to the branch librarians and the Friends, and and we can figure out if some of you want to approach your, you know, hopefully your local library, or if there's some other library that you have an interest in, we can do that in a concerted effort so that we don't have too many people descending on one library in particular. But I recommend, if you haven't had these conversations with branch librarians or with Friends groups, that you do it, because it's like, it was fun. It was really fun. It was great to hear, especially about the programs that they're proudest of. And you know, I could sort of start thinking about how I could support some of those very particular programs, like especially at Codman Square, libraries that are kind of adjacent to the neighborhood that I live in. You know, I think you'll find that you want to help some of the people who are doing some of the really good work. And I think that there are grant opportunities that, you know, I want to just send off to different Friends groups. There was one this week that I sent to David that we're going to send out to some of the groups. That was they're basically an advertising agency that have a fellowship where they do a $2,500 grant plus I think it's 100 hours of agency time. So it's 100 hours of communication and marketing from professionals, which could be a nice little game changer for a Friends group in the Boston Public Library system. And they're going to offer a bunch of them. I think there are opportunities like that. I think there are opportunities to perhaps think about how to get, if Honan wants some banners, there's probably an opportunity to think about how to get those banners sponsored. And I think that people on this call have connections that can do those kinds of things. So, you know, I think as much as you know, I have this instinct to try to centralize activities, I also think that there's something to be said for the independence with which these groups operate, and looking to see how you can individually plug in and maybe help them realize some of their goals.
I would advocate again for some kind of centralized sign up for people on this committee to coordinate some visits and fact finding. I think that would be great.
Okay, I will.
We can pair up and, you know, figure it out. But that would be, I think that would be very useful.
Okay, I will consult with David and his team about that, and talk to Priscilla too, and we will make that happen. So I want to be respectful of people's time. We have 4 minutes left in our allotted time. Is there anybody have any closing thoughts? All right. I want to thank you for your time. Pamela, what do I need to do to get us out of this?
Nothing, just adjourn the meeting. That's all.
Okay, great. We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Good to see you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Happy holidays.
Happy New Year.
Bye, friends.
Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you. Great meeting.
Amanda, if you could just stop the recording, that would be great.